Good morning. Welcome to How Are We Here, my little channel where I share with you some of the neat things I read, watch, or look up on the interweb. Today, I'm going to once again talk a little bit about creation, but this time according to the Abrahamic Genesis creation story. In my searches for old legends of creation, I decided to revisit the biblical Genesis story, mainly found in the Old Testament for Christians, but also found in the Torah for Judaism and the Quran for Muslims. Obviously, there are differences between the versions, names, details, whatnot, but I think this will turn out to be a decent retelling, so please sit back and enjoy.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth, it was formless and empty, a void and darkness. It was all over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the surface of the waters. Let there be light. God spoke into the void. God saw the light, and it was good. He divided the light from the darkness. He named the light day, and the darkness night, and this was the first day. And God would say, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So he made the firmament, and he called it heaven. This was the second day. God would go on to say, Let the waters under the heaven gather into one place. Let the dry land appear. And so it was. God called the dry land earth, and gathered the waters into the sea. It was good. God brought forth the grass, and the herbs, and the seeds, a fruit tree yielding fruit, seeds to bring forth more of its kind. This was good as well. This was on the third day. God said, Let the lights be in the heaven, to divide the day from the night. Let them be signs for the seasons, for the days, for the years. Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven, to give light to the earth. And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light, the sun, to rule the day, a lesser light, the moon, to rule the night. He placed the stars in the heavens as well. He set them all in the firmament to further divide the day and night. And this was the fourth day. And God said, Let the waters bring forth the moving creatures of the land, which has life. Let the fowl fly above the earth in the open skies of heaven. So God created great whales, and every living creature that moved. The waters brought forth abundant life, each to multiply and populate the seas and the skies, to bring forth more of its own kind. God saw this was good, and this was the fifth day. God would say, Let the earth bring forth the living creatures after its kind, cattle and the creeping things, and beasts of the earth after its own kind. And it was so. God made the beasts of the earth, the cattle, and everything that creeps upon the earth, all to bring forth after their kind. And God saw that it was good. And so, in 6 days, the Lord God created the hosts of the heavens. He created the earth. He made every plant of the field before it was in the earth. He made every herb of the land before it grew. But he had not caused it to rain yet, for there was no one to till the ground. So a mist went up from the earth. It watered the ground. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, the cattle, and over all the earth, dominion over everything that creeps upon the earth. And so God did. He created man in his own image, from the dust of the ground, breathed the breath of life into his nostrils. Man became a living soul. The Lord God then planted a garden in the east, the Garden of Eden, made plentiful trees grow from the ground, a pleasant sight, good for food. And the tree of life was in the middle of the garden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that was there as well. God then placed man, or Adam as we will call him, into the garden. Adam named the animals and enjoyed the comforts of the garden. Adam was to tend to the garden, but the Lord God thought it was not good for Adam to be alone. He appeared lonely. So Adam was lulled to sleep, and a helper was formed from the rib of Adam, and she would be created, the first woman. God would then command them, saying, of every tree in the garden they may freely eat, except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For if they do, they shall surely die on that very day. And this was the sixth day. And on the seventh day, God, he rested. And all was good for a time in the Garden of Eden, until that sneaky serpent. It is said the serpent was more subtle, more cunning than any beast of the field the Lord God had made. The serpent tempted the woman. He asked her if they were not allowed to eat the fruit of every tree in the garden. The woman, she would tell the serpent they could eat from all the trees except the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that even if they were to touch it, they would die. So the serpent said to the woman, they won't die, that their eyes, they would be opened. They would be like gods, knowing good and evil. So looking upon the fruit, at the tasty and pleasant apples, full of wisdom, the woman she took an apple, and she ate it. She offered it to her husband, and he ate it as well. Their eyes were now open, and guess what? They realized they were naked, and they were filled with shame. After using fig leaves and whatnot to make coverings for their naughty bits, they heard the voice of God as he walked through the garden in the cool air of the day. God called out to Adam, asking where they were, to which Adam responded, when I heard your voice in the garden, I hid because I was afraid, because I am naked. And God wanted to know who told them they were naked. The Lord God asked them if they had ate of the tree he commanded them not to eat of. And Adam told him that the woman had given him fruit of the tree, and he did eat it. God asked the woman, what had she done? Why? And she confessed that the serpent beguiled her, and that's why she ate the apple. God would curse the serpent, making him crawl on his belly, stuck in the dust for the rest of his days, and those to come after him. And God would place strife between him and the woman, and their seeds, the serpent to be bruised in the head, and the woman to be bruised at the heel. Ugh.
So God looked at the woman, and he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception, because in the conception she would bring forth children, and it would be painful. And he said, Thou shalt desire thy husband above all else, and he shall rule over thee. And God looked upon Adam, and he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife above my own commandments, and eaten of the tree I told you not to, for the rest of your days thou shalt sweat in the field, and eat bread of the ground, till you return to the ground. For out of it thou was taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return.
Adam would then call the woman his wife, Eve, because she would be the mother of all living beings afterwards. The Lord God made coats out of skins, and he clothed them. Then God sent them from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which they had been taken. He drove them from the garden, and placed a cherubim with a flaming sword, which the sword turned every which way, to guard the entrance to the garden, and keep the way of the tree of life. Some tales say that after being banished from the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve would go west. Some say they went east. But after 6 days they would become hungry. But the only food they found were food for the animals. So they decide to do penance in order to ask mercy to the Lord God, and maybe return to the garden. Adam explains to Eve how to do penance. He will stay 47 days immersed in the river Jordan, and Eve, she will go 40 days in the icy Tigris River. Adam enters the Jordan River and prays to the Lord. Some say that sneaky serpent from the garden was Satan, and here Satan disguises himself as a bright angel, and he talks Eve out of it. Eve would return to Adam, who reproaches her and Eve lies and prostrates with grief. Adam complains about Satan persecuting them, and Satan explains that he and his followers refuse God's command to worship them.
And Satan continues to explain how him and like-minded angels they were expelled from heaven, deprived of their glory and the glory of God, and they began to envy men who were made in God's image. Adam, he's unaffected by the story, so he goes and he serves his 40 days of penance. Eve, guilt-stricken again, she leaves Adam and she goes alone towards the west, laminating and crying. And when it is time for her to give birth, she is alone. But Adam reaches her in time, and he prays to God. And because of Adam's prayer, many angels arrive, and they help in the delivery.
So, with the angels assisting with the delivery, Cain is born, and he is immediately able to run. They would return east, and Michael, an angel, is sent by God to teach Adam agriculture. And when Abel is born, Eve has dreams of the future. She dreams that Cain will drink the blood of Abel. Adam and Eve would then make Cain tiller of the ground, and Abel would become a shepherd. This is done in order to separate them from each other. With Abel being a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. After a while, Cain he would bring to God an offering of the fruit of the ground, while Abel, for his part, brought the firstborn of his flock. And the God he regarded Abel's offering greatly, but he had no regard for Cain and his offering, and this made Cain very upset. Cain he would trick Abel into going out to the fields, because in his jealousy Cain would kill Abel, spilling his blood upon the ground. God would seek out Cain and ask, "Where is your brother Abel?" And Cain would respond by saying, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God he would lay a curse upon Cain, so that the fields would no longer yield to him, in punishment for spilling his brother's blood with his own hand. Cain would go away from the presence of God, and he settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Cain would know a wife, and she would bear Enoch. Cain built a city and named it Enoch after his own son. I believe this is where the Canaanites come from.
And so an angel would tell Adam and Eve not to fret because Seth would be born in place of Abel. So Adam and Eve would have about another 30 sons and 30 or 32 daughters. We know names of 5 of them: Cain and his sister, his twin sister, Lulula. And then there's Abel and his twin sister, Aklia. And finally, we know the name of Seth. As for Adam and Eve, they would have no more offspring. So the number of Adam's children kind of varies, but it's basically 33 sons and 32 women.
So throughout Adam's life, he would recount to Seth that after the fall, when they were booted from Eden, he would still pray to God. He would still worship him. And God, he would promise Adam that the knowledge that he had would not be taken away from Adam's seed forever, which I'm assuming means Adam's descendants. Adam's family would go on to multiply, to till the fields, to worship God. And as Adam is dying, sick and in pain, he wants to give a blessing to all his sons and daughters, who do not know what illness and pain feel like. So Adam, he recounts to them the story of the fall. During all of this, as Adam is lying sick, and he foretells Eve that she will die shortly after, he does want Eve to pray, because he doesn't know whether God is still angry with them or if God will be merciful. So while Eve is praying on bended knee, the angel of humanity, probably Michael, comes and shows her the spirit of Adam, gone from his body, and ascending to where God awaits. He would eventually die at the age of 930, and at the funeral of Adam, a chariot of light, borne by 4 bright eagles with seraphim and angels, arrive where Adam's body lies. The 7 heavens are opened, and Seth explains to his mother Eve who the 2 fearful figures in mourning are. They're the sun and the moon, deprived of their light because God is present. God has mercy on Adam, who is cleansed 3 times in water before being carried before God. God stretches out his arm and hands Adam over to Michael to be carried to the third heaven until the last day. Only Seth can see this scene for some reason. The body is covered with linen cloths, and a fragrant oil is poured on it. The body of Abel also is there, which until then the earth had refused to receive. It is taken to the same place. Both bodies, Abel and Adam, are buried in the place from which God took the clay, the dust, to create Adam originally. God calls Adam, whose body answers from the earth, and God promises Adam that he and every one of his seed will rise again. Eve would pray to God, asking that when she goes, she could be buried near Adam. And 6 days after Adam's death, Eve passes as well. 3 angels, they bury Eve near Adam. And Michael tells Seth to never mourn on the Sabbath, on the seventh day, and keep that holy. Seth would create tablets written about his parents' lives, and he would place them where Adam, his father, used to pray, and that is the Temple Mount.
So, going off what I remember here, we get stories of Adam and Eve's descendants. A lot of who begat who and the ages that these people died. A big long genealogy. Eventually, though, we would get to Noah, who I think all of you know about. You see, the people of the world, they had become sinful, rambunctious, loud. They would no longer keep to God's holy word. So God, he decides to send a deluge, a flood, something Eve had warned her children about in one version of her death. God being regretful of the way things turned out, but knowing Noah, a descendant of Seth, who was a son of Adam, and how he has kept to the old traditions, decides Noah and his family would be spared. So God, he gives Noah instructions to build an ark out of gopher wood, take his wife and 3 sons, and their 3 wives aboard the ark, along with 2 of every animal. Some tales say 2 of the clean animals and 7 of the unclean, whatever the difference is. Noah, he builds the ark, and the animals show up 2 by 2 to bring after their kind, and they ride out on a 40-day, 40-night storm, as everything upon the earth is drowned in God's wrath. Eventually, a bird that Noah was releasing, I think a dove, would return with a fruit tree or a branch, so Noah and his family, they would know that the storm has ended and the waters have receded, and find a place to dock the ark. Noah and his family, they would do sacrifices and whatnot, and God, he would create a new covenant with the family. A side note, I guess one of Noah's sons would accidentally see Noah's genitals when Noah was drunk and passed out. So God would curse the son named Ham, and much like Cain, Ham would flee. But God would place the mark of Ham upon Ham's skin, and I would assume, or I am assuming, that this is the place where the people that would eventually be heathens in more biblical tales descend from. Eventually, we would get the tale of Babel. We would get tales of Moses. We would see these stories branch off into Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Each religion having their own stories to follow the first family of Adam and Eve. Alrighty, here we are. I think that's far enough. Like I said, many of you may have heard different versions, as with other old tales I have talked about in my How Are We Here series. Being thousands of years old, if not more, and passing through many different cultures, it has of course changed over time. I found 2 different accounts, the Latin version of Adam and Eve, and the one in the Greek Apocalypse of Moses. That's kind of cool to compare the 2. I spliced them together here to be able to tell a little bit of a fuller tale. Otherwise, I really don't have much more to talk about with this tale. I knew the basis of the 7-day creation story, and a bit about Adam and Eve, the fall of man, and the story of Cain and Abel, the first murder. But other details like Adam's funeral wasn't something I really remember ever reading before. But it's been a long time since I tried to read the Bible, And the main thing I remember from the Bible is that long list of genealogy of who begat who and when they died, most people living like hundreds and hundreds of years. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed my retelling of this old creation tale and the tale of the first family.
Wait, please, don't go yet. I could use your help. You know, doing the whole YouTube thing. So if you could take a moment to like this video, and if you've got an extra minute, could you let me know what you thought in the comments section? Share the video if you think any of your friends or followers on other social media might like the tales. And check to make sure you are subscribed. Every time I get a subscriber, I will admit I smile just a tad bit. But no matter what you decide to do, thanks for watching, especially if you got this far. It means a great deal to me. And thank you all for watching.
So, if you enjoyed hearing this old Abrahamic tale of creation, maybe, just maybe, you're like hearing about other creation stories. I have a few other tales of how other cultures thought we got here. Take a view. TLDR, I'm just some guy on the YouTube who did some reading on an interesting topic and shared it the best I could with you all. Once again, thank you all for watching. Have a great day and take care. Keep safe.